Cloning obviously had a major impact on the galaxy just from their use in the Clone Wars, but cloning also played a significant role in Star Wars beyond just the creation of clone troopers. Aside from Kamino, other planets like Kham, Calamus, Nickel-1 in the Roche asteroid field, and Arcania used cloning for everything from basic reproduction to medical purposes and even more. During the Clone Wars, however, the Republic Senate passed a decree which severely restricted many of these industries, Decree E49-D139-41. This was originally mentioned in Star Wars Insider issue 68 before being fleshed out more, with the text of the decree being in Republic Commando True Colors by Karen Travis. This text of the decree, as given by Republic Commando, reads that, quote, all non-military cloning of sentience is prohibited, and military cloning is to be confined to Republic-licensed facilities, such as those the government of Kamino, and any others designated by the Republic now, or at any time during the duration of hostilities. This prohibition encompasses the supply of cloning equipment, the hiring or contracting of cloning technologists and genetic engineers for the purposes of carrying out cloning techniques, and the procurement of sentient cloned organisms. Exceptions, Kham, Lure, Calamus, and Arcania may continue therapeutic medical cloning with appropriate license on a case-by-case basis. So effectively, the galaxy as a whole, which in many ways relied upon cloning for everyday purposes, was cut off from access to cloning technology. This was essentially meant to give the Grand Army of the Republic full military capacity to train further clone troopers, but also to prevent cloning secrets from falling into the hands of the Separatists, who did try multiple times to make their own clone armies, like with the Morgakai Shadow Army, which I believe I've done a previous video on. While the decree mentions exemptions for Kham, Lure, Calamus, and Arcania on a case-by-case basis for medical cloning, this still greatly rolled back even that. Republic Commando talks about how much of a burden it was for Arcanian Microtechnologies, a medical tech company on Arcania, and the CIS Shadow Feed entry from Insider, where the decree was introduced, mentions some of the broader implications. It does seem like the Shadow Feed article was meant to restrict things more than the True Colors explanation ultimately did, but it still works at the very least as propaganda, since it's meant to be written as the CIS news feed, and some limits of the restrictions were unclear in both situations either way. The Shadow Feed article does mention that Kham in particular would be hard hit by this, even though they're listed as exemptions because they rely fully on cloning for reproduction. Essentially, each generation was a complete copy of the previous generation, fulfilling the exact same jobs as their predecessors and named with successive numbers. For example, 2 Jedi from Luke's later reborn Jedi Order, Dorsk 81 and Dorsk 82, were from the planet of Kham, and the fact that they could use the Force was actually seen as an anomaly, and they were kind of shunned from society at first, especially Dorsk 81, since he was the first to do it, because they did diverge from what had already been happening. So you can see how there would be big economic, political, and cultural implications from cloning just being the subject of a blanket ban under the Republic like this. The article mentioning Kham also does mention facilities on Lure, Arcania, and Calamus completely ceasing operations, so while many of them would be allowed to continue production in some cases, True Colors indicates that all specific exemptions were tracked, and this was done very specifically. So on the case of individual organs or individual instances of cloning rather than being per company or per planet or even per general purpose, there was no specific field that was left entirely untouched by this cutoff. While the order was only meant to last out the war, after the Clone Wars, the attitude towards cloning held by many in the galaxy was overwhelmingly negative for obvious reasons. Bans and restrictions on cloning would continue, and while some military applications lived on, Kamino, for example, actually did engage in some cloning for Imperial warlords, and then Thrawn also used abandoned facilities on planets like Wayland to make another clone army. The industry never really recovered from the Clone Wars in the period that Legends ended up covering in a lot of ways. Something that used to be very common and very important in a lot of worlds saw a lot of negative stigma surrounding it. While planets like Kham did consider that to be still part of their core culture, the perception of it on other planets, especially worlds that would have been hard hit by the Clone Wars, tended to be very negative. Either way, that's going to do it for today. If you've enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like or subscribing for more. If you have a suggestion for a future topic, please leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.